Episode 220, Dementia and the Garden. This is the World Organic News for the week ending 29th of June 2020. John Moore reporting. Decarbonise the air, recarbonise the soil. Well, it's been an interesting week, really. All this stuff about photosynthesis and whatnot that I've been covering in the last couple of episodes has started to come together in my mind. And I've got hold of a refractometer, which will measure the BRICS, BRIX, which is the sugar content in leaves, so that we can see how well the photosynthesis is going using the sugar content as a proxy for what's going on underneath the ground, and see if we can affect some change underground. Equally, I received a link from an research organisation connected with the state government and the University of Tasmania. And it's to do with tracking people's mental acuity and the growth of dementia and whatnot in the population as we age. But it's not just measuring what's happening, they're also offering a set of free courses, mostly bachelor degrees, a few other things, through the University of Tasmania, but they will be fee-free. Now, there's a particular one that's of interest, of course, called something to do with sustainability. Academia is always, some time behind, and so sustainability is still a big thing, rather than regenerativeness, if that's a word. Guess it is now, I've used it. So I'm working my way through the application at the moment, looking forward to getting onto that program. There's a couple of different strands we can take. One, of course, is to do with the science of gardening. And that, combined with the planning I've been doing for next spring, with the knowledge of the importance and processes of photosynthesis and its connection to the stuff underground, I'm wondering if I can sort of find some way to work that into the program. But we will see. We will see. And so we're looking forward to doing, I think it's a graduate certificate in sustainability or graduate diploma in sustainability. But it's just been part of the planning process. Turns out I wasn't actually measuring correctly because my tape measures weren't really long enough and there was lots of slippage on the paddock. So I went to my old friend Google Earth, and their measuring devices are really good now. So you can describe an area along its boundaries and it will calculate the square meterage for you. So what I thought was going to be 4 paddocks is now going to end up being 6, ranging from about 700 square metres up to 900. One of the larger ones I'm going to use just for Fukuoka grain growth. Half of it will be barley, a third of it will be a quarter of it spelt and a quarter of it wheat. But between those, and perhaps even through some of the strips of grain, I'm going to put in some flowers in an attempt to get the greater photosynthetic benefits of having a more complicated ecosystem. So that's part of the planning. The other five fields, I guess, paddocks, gardens, areas of growth will be pasture, pigs, garlic, of course, because that's going to be our main cash crop. Sweet corn, maize of some description. I'm not sure what it'll be this first year. I've still got some blue corn seed I might use because that stuff always excites me. So it's pigs, pasture, maize, vines, so lots of cucumbers and cucurbits of all sorts, rock melon, watermelon, a few other trailing things like that, squash, butternut, squash, summer and winter, and pumpkins, because then that will be ready in time to feed the pigs as we move into autumn. And the fifth one will, of course, be, so we've got pastures, pigs, maize, garlic and vines, yeah. And so I've just been working through that in my mind as to which order we should do it. The garlic and the corn are both fairly heavy feeders, so I'm thinking we might do the garlic followed by the corn, followed by the vines, followed by the pasture, and then the pigs just work their way around it. As you can see, I haven't quite got it in my head yet, but it's all starting to come together, and be able to use this as part of the process in the study program for the Dementia program. So I'm hoping it all comes together with that. I'll talk to them in the next couple of weeks. We're still in the middle of the COVID stuff, so of course universities are online at the moment. And as I did my degree, my BA in archaeology back in the olden days when it was pre-internet, and we used to get stuff posted to us. It was all done externally. So basically by mail, and we'd go up for 4 to 10 days a semester, depending on the topics we were doing and what was the plan, and sort of cram ourselves and talk to other students then. Looking forward to it using the interwebs. It'll be much easier to get in touch with people, and we can take the camera out and show what's going in the paddocks before we have a discussion with people. And being out of town with the social distancing rules and gatherings at the moment, we can still have people come to visit, up to 5 at the moment, I think. Though they're talking about up to 100 outdoors, but I don't want that many people traipsing across the place. So while all that's good and things are going well, and we're doing okay here in Australia, there's been a bit of a spike in one of the states, Victoria, which is across the Bass Strait from us. And people are quite concerned. There was 41 new cases today, and there's been a week of double-digit new cases every day. We're certainly nowhere near in the position that Latin America and even the US and the UK are in. And we're opening very gradually. New Zealand, of course, is the gold standard, but we're not that far behind them here in Australia. It's been 52 days since we had a case in Tasmania, so we're doing okay. So in this sort of, what's the phrase I'm after, growing sense of hope, came the news this week, of course, of the fires in Siberia above the Arctic Circle. Now, parts of Siberia, the southern parts, go from minus 40 in winter to plus 40 degrees C in summer. So it's a land of extremes, but never above the Arctic Circle has it got this hot. It hit 38 degrees in one of the towns there. And it is really quite depressing on some levels, given the fires we had here in Australia last year. And I shudder to think what this summer's going to bring. Hopefully it's been wetter, so either there's more moisture in the ground or it just means that there's more fuel available. So we will see. I like to try and maintain hope. The depression can be quite debilitating. Not that I've had clinical depression, but I've had depression. I've been depressed, let's put it that way. So hope's an important thing. I'm going to be a grandfather at the end of August, start of September. So we'd like to have a world for that extra generation to come along and live in. So I think the garden planning and the gardening actually helps. I'm sure it'll help anyway with the keeping the mind active, which seems to be a thing for safeguarding against dementia. Not that there's any in the family. It's just, I don't know, I just got the link because I'm over 50 and I'm in the state. So the thing I think is to have something that's bigger than each of us, to aim for something that will actually change the world. And I think that's what we're doing with this whole regenerative thing. We have the opportunity to change the world. And it's quite overwhelming at times, the possibilities that are out there. I think there are people working on the political stuff, which is just almost too frustrating to bother with, I find. I think if we just stick with my hands in the dirt or on the dirt and keep changing what's underneath, get some change underground happening, we'll be doing okay. And I'd like to think that all my listeners themselves have got their hands in the soil at some stage. It's a touching thing that so many people listen each week in the hope that we're all, I'm hoping anyway, that this is something bigger than each of us, that we can actually make a difference. So I think it's time we all got started. And if we've already started, I think it's time we need to keep going. I know there's been a fair bit of warmth in the Northern Hemisphere this summer. Apparently fine sunny days across parts of Europe that are used to rain while people were in lockdown. I came across a photo on Facebook earlier as well, which I think feeds in nicely. It'll be in the show notes on the website, worldorganicnews.com/episode 220. And I'll just quote from it. If something is not eating your plants, then your garden is not part of the ecosystem. And given the amount of pesticides and herbicides and fungicides and miticides and mousicides and all kinds of things that have been sprayed since the Second World War, it's a wonder in a lot of ways that we have ecosystems at all. I remember last summer the sweet corn at work was well and truly on its way to maturing, and I noticed little bugs on it. So I took a photo, and then 2 or 3 leaves over, I spotted a parasitic wasp, which was also eating on the bugs, which was eating on the corn. And seeing this quote, something's not eating your plants, then your garden's not part of the ecosystem, was quite comforting to know that we were actually part of the ecosystem and that things were able to rebalance themselves, which from what I understand from the photosynthesis means that the plants were healthy and that we weren't overwhelmed by pests pests, I guess is a phrase for them. It's just we weren't overwhelmed by herbivorous insects. There were some, and the predator insects came and did the job, and everything remained in a sort of dynamic balance, which is quite a wonderful thing to have happen. Because in the glass house, we did not have things as they should be. We got swamped with whitefly. The investigation discovered that the raised beds were sort of 4 boards high, which I thought were all soil, where in fact only the top 2 boards had soil. That was the soil level, and under that was concrete rubble to fill up the gaps. And the beds have been made that high so people in wheelchairs could reach into them, which is fair enough. But it didn't make for healthy soil. And it's fairly old, and the person who was doing the job before me had no trouble using Roundup or artificial fertilisers. So it's taking a little while to come back. So it's not surprising that we got swamped with whitefly. I have been bathing the place a couple of times when during the lockdown I was still going to work. But there were no clients there, so we were able to use the time to hit the place with a good spray of neem oil, which is extremely highly diluted but is extremely powerful stuff. I found out the other week that neem oil, in fact, doesn't actually kill the beetles or the beasts, but stops their shells growing so that they can't mature into adults and therefore reproduce. As you know, insects go through larval stages and then pupa, and then once they're flying stage, their outer shell, their exoskeleton, they either shed it and grow a new one, or they grow it with them, and this stuff stops them growing. So the animals still live out a life of sorts, still eat, but are unable to grow and reproduce, which then is supposed to kill off the reproductive cycles, obviously. So there's an example of an enclosed space that was not part of the ecosystem that I wanted it to be, but was still part of the ecosystem because it was being predated. We still got lots of beans off and lots of cucurbits, cucumbers in particular, before the whitefly overwhelmed them. So it's not as if we didn't get a harvest, but we would have got a lot more if there weren't any whitefly. So fingers crossed for this year, and I'll keep an eye out more closely for them and hit them with the neem oil at the first sign. Sneaky little buggers, though, they hide underneath the leaves. So unless you're turning over every leaf every day, you can end up missing them until it's too late. So we'll keep an eye on that, and that'll be something for the people I work with. That'll be a good task for them to go hunting for these things. So let's stay focused. Let's keep growing things despite the fires in Siberia, which are the evidence of the still warming climate. And let's start sucking some carbon back into the soil where it belongs. And we can all do this, even if it's only a little bit, we can still get started. And if we've already started, we can keep going. So let's grow some healthy ecosystems. If you need a hand with that on a more formal basis, there's a link to a Udemy course in the show notes. If you want people to get themselves growing quickly, because this second wave of the COVIDs could be coming fairly soon if we're not careful, which could put us all back into lockdown. And so if people want to get things growing quickly so they've got some food growing if and when that happens, you can send them over to episode 207, where I discuss a quick response garden to get things happening swiftly. And I think if we put in the groundwork now in this unusual for those of us alive now, no one much has been through anything like this before, individually, but as a species we have, over and over. Apparently those of us alive today of European extraction have markers on our genes somewhere to show how we survived the Black Death. So we're all survivors. Let's keep going. Let's put in the groundwork now, and we can all actually change the world for the better, even if it's only a little bit to start with. And we'll begin the process of decarbonising the air and recarbonising the soil. Thank you all for listening, and I'll be back next week.